morning, parents. Welcome to the latest edition of our Monday morning meditation. Our passage this morning is found in Exodus chapter 12, verses 24 through 28. You can look with me as I read there. And it says, "You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons forever. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, 'What do you mean by this service?' you shall say, 'It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. For he passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, when he struck the Egyptians but spared our houses. And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. Then the people of Israel went and did so, as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did." The context here is that Moses is giving the instructions for the first Passover in Israel. And I think the neat thing here is that a lot of times, of course, we read about the Israelites and they're disobedient to God, lacking faith. But the encouraging thing is here we see in this passage that they do well. They actually exercise faith and they are obedient to God. We see that in verse 27. It says the people bowed their heads and they worshiped. This is an act of faith in the future promises of God, because this hasn't actually happened yet. They're being told what's going to happen. God is going to strike the Egyptians and God is going to spare your houses. And the people believe. They bow their heads and they worshiped. They bow their heads because they're in awe of this powerful, great, majestic God, this judging God. And what's being revealed here of God's character is that, wow, God is a creator of all things and he owns all things, even the firstborn of Egypt. So they're in awe of God and they're bowing their heads. But they're also really thankful because God is being merciful to them. They're thankful because God is sparing their children. So in awe of God and thankful unto God. And then we read in verse 28 how they are obedient to God. So they have faith and now they walk by faith. As it says, then the people of Israel went and they did so. And I think that what's being communicated here by Moses to the people of Israel is it's this encouragement for them to live by faith and to walk by faith. And then we see the positive results of what will take place when the people of Israel do that. And when we do that ourselves, when we live by faith, what will happen is verse 26. "Then our children will say to you, 'What do you mean by this service?'" So what's awesome and what's being communicated for us is this, is that when we live by faith, it will produce questions of faith within our children. As we live by faith before our children in our lives, it will produce questions of faith where then we can give them Christian instruction and Christian teaching. So as we are just faithful to obey God in our own lives, as we're faithful to attend church, right? We go to church and then we participate in communion and we participate in baptism and we witness baptisms. As we get on the meal train and we prepare a meal for somebody else, our kids, it's going to produce questions of faith within our children. Like, why do we do that? Why do we go to church every Sunday? Why do we do communion? What's up with the bread and the cup? And why are we calling it the body of Christ and the blood of Christ? And what's happening in baptism? Why is this, lady getting wet right now? I don't really understand. And why are we preparing a meal for somebody who's not actually in our family? So a life of faith and a life of obedience produces questions of faith within our children. And I think this is really important because sometimes when we think about wanting our children to become Christian, the only thing that we can think about sometimes is like this spiritual checklist of what we need to do. Like, okay, well, I need to be praying with them. I need to read with them. I need to sing with them. And I need to give them these things. I need to take them to church. Here's how I get them to become a Christian. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things. We should do those things, but the reasoning behind it is really important. And so what can happen is if we kind of extend that idea out too much, right? This idea of like, well, I need to do these things and hit these spiritual checklists so that my children become a Christian. What can happen is our children can become somewhat like a project, right? I need to do these things in order for them to become a Christian. And if we take it further and we play this project idea out, it becomes, well, now that they're actually professing faith, well, my job is done. Because all that I did those things for was so that they could become a Christian. And now that they are a Christian and professing faith, I can sit back and relax. But that's not actually why we do those things with our kids. We're not just trying to make them become a Christian or profess faith. we want them to live a life of godliness. We want them to live a life of faith all of their days upon the earth. We're trying to pass on our faith to our children. And the best way to actually pass on our faith to our children is actually to live by faith ourselves. And so it's not so much, well, here's what I'm going to do for my children, and here's this spiritual checklist that I'm doing for them in order for them to become Christian. It's not so much that as though it's disassociated from us and separate from us. It's, no, here's the life of faith that I live and that I'm inviting my children into. So it's not, I do devotions so my kids can become a Christian. It's like, no. I do devotions because I need devotions. And I do devotions because I read my Bible, and I pray, and I sing, and I seek after God. And this is because of the life of faith that I'm living as a parent. And I invite my children in to do those same things that I do. Right? So our children should witness us reading our Bible and praying and singing and doing these kinds of things. And this is the best way to pass on our faith. So another quick example of this is we just had VBS. We had 5-day devotions on wisdom each time for the kids to do during the week. And there could be a mentality, an easy mentality for us of, okay, so here's these devotionals that I have for the kids. And we can think about it only in terms of it's for the kids, right? And so here's these devotions, and I'm going to do this with you, and this is for you. The problem in that thinking simply like that is we're also not understanding that, no, this isn't just for you. This is for me. This is for us. Like, I need a Christian education just as much as they need a Christian education. And I need to live by faith, and I'm inviting them into my life to live by faith as well. And so the Israelites, what's being communicated here in this passage that we're looking at today is, like, the Israelites are going to practice this service and this memorial, the Passover celebration, year after year, regardless of whether they ever have children or not. Some of them are going to be barren, but they're going to continue to practice the Passover. Why? Because it's about their faith. They're living out their faith. And then they're going to have children, right? Some of them are going to have children. They're going to have infants. And infants can't ask this question, what do you mean by this service? But they're going to be doing this service year after year, over and over. And then one day their children are going to be old enough and aware enough, and they're going to say, and they're going to respond and say, what do you mean by this service? What is it that you're doing? Why are we doing this as a family? And they're going to have a response. So what I'm saying overall, big picture here, is that the best way to pass on faith to our children is to live by faith ourselves, and we're inviting them in to live by faith as well. Well, I hope this helps you this morning, and I look forward to continuing to build faith in families. God bless.